Welcome back to another exciting episode of DecayMag.com podcast, episode number 2. I'm your host, Ken Artuz. I am also the founder and editor of DecayMag.com.
And I am your host, Enid Roman. Welcome to DK Mag.
We have some exciting news to share this week. A lot of news has come in regarding films and television. We will also be featuring a crowdfunding spotlight and this is going to be a big surprise because this particular crowdfunding has a very intriguing concept and the cast involved is very, very exciting. So stay tuned and welcome again to DecayMag.com podcast, episode number 2.
News of the week.
All around her, people are dying, and only Rose knows why.
You gotta come quick. You gotta come quick and get me.
It's Rose. It's gotta be. Something's happened to Rose.
Hey guys, the topic here involves news of a horror film remake.
Are you kidding me? Another remake?
Hold on here. There's hope for this project in particular. Jen and Sylvia Saska, aka the Saska Sisters, aka Twister Sisters, captured the attention of the horror film community with their indie release in 2012 with their film American Mary. Since then, this dynamic horror filmmaking duo established themselves within the genre. The Saska Sisters would later ink a deal with WWE Films. The release that followed were the 2014 release See No Evil 2 and the 2015 release Vendetta. Variety reported, "This is that Jen and Sylvia Saska are slated to direct the David Cronenberg 1977 zombie horror film Rabid." The synopsis to Rabid read as follows. A young woman develops a taste for human blood after undergoing experimental plastic surgery, and her victims turn into rabid, bloodthirsty zombies who proceed to infect others, which turns into a city-wide epidemic. Many horror enthusiasts may groan to the thought of another horror masterpiece getting a modernized remake/reboot. Yet, having Jen and Sylvia Saska at the helm could possibly be, and use the term lightly, could possibly be a film to look forward to. Over the years, we're seeing our share of successful horror film remakes. On the other hand, we see multiple reboots fail to parallel or surpass expectations from the original source materials. The problem here is Hollywood's news over creative expressions and exploration. Horror films are marketed for general audiences with its ridiculous PG-13 MPAA rating. Horror films that do receive an R rating are subjected to constant edits. These cuts result in diluting the director's intended vision. Jen and Sylvia Saska have 19 directorial credits under their name. Most are short films with only 3 full features indie releases. They certainly have the creative process to recreate David Cronenberg Rabid. They understand how crucial it is to express horror, especially a film sourced from a cult classic. On this subject, the Saska sister offered the following comment. The real message of this film is powerful and even more pivotal as we look at the world around us today. It's an honor to be involved in this love letter to his original, which we handle with the same respect as Paul Schrader's Cat People, Alexander Age's The Hills Have Eyes, and Jack Carpenter's The Thing. According to Variety, David Cronenberg, Rabid will be a feature film and a television series. On board to serve as producer on this project are Paul Lalonde and Michael Walker. Here's what Paul Lalonde has to say on the Saska sister joining the production team. The addition of Jen and Sylvia Saska to the team is a real coup. When you're remaking a classic horror film like Rabid, you have to make sure you don't compromise when it comes to the director. The Saskas are among the hottest young directors in the horror genre, and I couldn't be happier with our choice. Stay tuned to DecayMag.com for further developments.
That sounds interesting, but I still reserve some doubts on the remake to David Cronenberg's Rabid. I don't know, for some reason I'm getting a vibe that it would not be as successful as the original. There's very few films that are capable of capturing that essence of surpassing the original film. What do you think?
I guess we'll have to wait and see how this project shaped up to be.
Infected! Infected! Infected with what?
Blood. There's something in the blood.
I have some very interesting news for fans of the zombie/infected subgenre. The following report serves as a follow-up to the third installment to the 28 horror film franchise. In January 2015, screenwriter Alex Garland spoke with IGN about a proposed 28 months later film. A year has since passed since this interview. In addition, further updates on this project have remained silent. That comes to no surprise. Since the release of 28 Weeks Later in 2007, rumors began to swirl for a possible third entry to the franchise. In this latest reveal, Alex Garland provided some insight on and if 28 months later would be in the foreseeable future. He stated, "We've just actually started talking about it seriously. We've got an idea. Danny Boyle and producer Andrew McDonald and I have been quite serious conversations about it, so it's a possibility. It's complicated. There's a whole bunch of reasons why it's complicated, which are boring, so I won't get into it, but there's a possibility." Alex Garland also added that the next installment to the Rage virus theme film will be 28 months later. Garland stated, "It's more likely to be 28 months than 28 years. 28 years gives you one more place to go. 28 decades is probably taking the piss." 28 Days Later was a film ahead of its time. This is a perfect example of originality in both concept and execution. The synopsis to 28 Days Later reads as follows. 4 weeks after a mysterious, incurable virus spreads throughout the UK, a handful of survivors try to find sanctuary. Arguably, this is not a zombie film. The film serves as a new direction to the post-apocalyptic survival horror scenario. Instead of slow-moving cannibal corpses, writer Alex Garland and director Danny Boyle presented fast-moving infected hosts. The Rage virus depicted in the film converts healthy individuals to unstoppable killing machines. 28 Weeks Later was a more action-oriented continuation from the first film. Juan Carlos Fresnadillo served as director to the film. Rowan Joffe wrote the script, in collaboration with Enrique Lopez Lavigne and Jesus Olmo. The synopsis to 28 months later reads as follows. 6 months after the Rage virus was inflicted on the population of Great Britain, the US Army helps to secure a small area of London for the survivors to repopulate and start again. But not everything goes to plan. 28 months later sits as a passing thought. Although the comments were issued, there doesn't seem to be a strong force pushing the project forward. At least the idea is still alive through the occasional conversation.
I'm so excited about this film, being that 28 Days Later is our favorite movie.
That's so true. It's one of my favorite films. That scene where Jim is in the church and he says hello, and that infected guy just pops up out of the pile of bodies. That's epic filmmaking right there.
I can't wait for a third part. For now, here's our colleague, contributor writer for DecayMag.com, Miss Stacy Cox.
I want to play a game.
He doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through our feet.
The 8th installment for the Saw franchise has been announced. Saw Legacy is currently in production, and the anticipation is soaring through the roof. I personally don't know how to feel about a new Saw installment. I just about gave up on the franchise after the 3rd installment. After that, it all became repetitive and predictable to me. The same game, different players. I honestly feel like the Saw franchise has been long dead since the 4th installment. They should have just left it alone. Once Jigsaw dies, it all becomes a bunch of gibberish and hocus pocus. The Saw franchise dates back to 2004. Director James Wan and writer Lee Whannell started a whole new terrifying nightmare. 2 unsuspecting men wake up to find themselves chained inside of a bathroom. They're held hostage and are victimized by an anonymous serial killer, only referred to as Jigsaw. If the victims want to live, they must play the game and abide by the rules Jigsaw has in place. Here is a summary of the sequels that follow. Saw 2 released in 2005. Jigsaw is back to his sadistic games, only this time it revolves around a group of strangers. They're imprisoned inside of a factory. Detective Eric Matthews is put on the case. He finds out that there is more at stake than just the 8 victims. His son has also become a notch on Jigsaw's belt. Saw 3, released in 2006. The antagonist, Jigsaw, has an apprentice. Amanda, yes, one of Jigsaw's victims from Saw 2. She abducts Dr. Lynn Dillon and holds her hostage. The doctor is forced to treat John Kramer, Jigsaw, for his brain tumor. Saw 4, released in 2007. Jigsaw and his apprentice Amanda are dead. However, this does not stop the madness that Jigsaw created. When SWAT Commander Rigg is abducted and thrust into a game, he has 90 minutes to overcome a series of demented traps and save an old friend or face the deadly consequences. Saw 5, released in 2008. Despite Jigsaw's death, the sadistic games continue. 5 strangers find themselves in the midst of the big game. Via his now infamous video-linked dial, Jigsaw conveys the message that they should ignore their instincts and ignore his advice at their peril. Meanwhile, Agent Strahm, who's also trapped in the game, must prove that Hoffman is a Jigsaw's apprentice. Agent Strahm pursues him as he continues his twisted games. What Strahm does not realize is that Hoffman is testing him all along and must pass his test in order to stay alive. Saw 6, released in 2009. Special Agent Strahm is dead, and Detective Hoffman has emerged as the unchallenged successor in Jigsaw's legacy. However, when the FBI draws closer to Hoffman, he is forced to set a game into motion, and Jigsaw's grand scheme is finally understood. Saw 3D, the final chapter, released in 2010. As a deadly battle rages over Jigsaw's brutal legacy, a group of Jigsaw survivors gather to seek the support of self-help guru and fellow survivor Bobby Dagan, a man whose own dark secrets unleash a new wave of terror. Now that we have an overview of the series, let's see what Saw Legacy has in store for horror fans. After a much-needed break of a very tired franchise, Lionsgate has decided to get their heads back in the game and move forward with the newest edition, Saw Legacy. Although not much is known at this point on the story details, I think we can all assume that the legacy will follow in its previous footsteps. I think this break will hopefully ignite the spark back into the franchise. As far as what is certain at this point in time, Saw Legacy will be written by Peter Goldfinger and Josh Stolberg. James Wan, who directed the first installment, and Lee Wanell, who co-wrote and starred in the first installment, will be the executive producers. As for the director goes, that is still yet to be determined. More information on Saw Legacy has yet to be revealed. Let's keep our fingers crossed. And now, back to my colleagues at DecayMag.com.
Thank you, Stacy Cox, for that intriguing report. If you're interested in becoming a contributor writer for DecayMag.com, send us an email and we'll get back to you.
You're one ugly motherfucker.
Reports have surfaced on yet another horror sci-fi franchise getting a modern update. Talk of a fourth installment to the Predator series have circulated since summer 2014. In late 2015, screenwriter Fred Decker shocked the horror community with a Facebook message. Decker stated that he had completed and submitted the script to Predator 4. Since then, further details on the Predator 4 project have remained quiet. Unlike Alien, the Predator film franchise has had a short lifespan. The series began in John McTiernan's 1987 Vision Predator. The film starred pre-Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jesse Ventura, and Carl Weathers also star in this action sci-fi. Here's an info tidbit. Most are unaware that Predator was the starting platform for Jean-Claude Van Damme. Predator targeted a male demographic with its use of action-heavy cinematics. The creature reveal stands as one of the most notable scenes in movie history. Stephen Hopkins directed Predator 2. The film released in 1990 and starred Danny Glover. Nimrod Antal directed the 2010 release Predators. The film starred Adrian Brody, Topper Grace, and former UFC champion Oleg Taktarov. Two crossover films pitted the intergalactic hunters against the deadly xenomorphs. Aliens vs. Predator, released in 2014. Jack McTiernan returning as director. Alien vs. Predator, Requiem, released in 2017. Colin Strauss and Greg Strauss, the brother Strauss, serve as directors to the film. The Predator will be written by Shane Black and Fred Decker. Shane Black is rumored to be directing the project, as he has been the most focal and involved individual in the development of the fourth Predator film. In a 2014 interview with calendar, Shane Black voiced his opinion on the Predator 4 film project. He stated, "Why start over when all this rich mythology yet to mine? The idea of expanding and exploring the existing Predator mythology rather than hitting the restart button. In other words, the objective is to add another chapter to the franchise. This is good news, especially for fans of the Predator film franchise. Also, who'll be interested in watching a reboot to Predator anyways? With today's tame standards, it will probably be rated PG-13. Also, the current trend of rebooting classic movies is growing tired, not to mention repetitive as well."
Another Predator film. I hope it's as good as Predators. Predators starring Adrian Brody really encapsulated the intergalactic hunter. The part 2 with Danny Glover didn't do so well in my book. What do you think about that?
I like the movie. I just hope they don't mess this one up.
In order to fight monsters, we created monsters of our own.
Earlier this year, The Hollywood Reporter posted an update on the much anticipated Pacific Rim sequel. Unfortunately, it wasn't the news many were expecting to hear. The article states that due to schedule conflicts, Pacific Rim would not be filmed. The reason being is that Guillermo del Toro would be working with James Cameron to remake the film titled Fantastic Voyage. The exact term revealed by the inside source stated Pacific Rim is to be off the table indefinitely. This news was revealed back in January 2016. Indefinitely is a strong word and should not be used lightly in media productions. Whoever the inside source was clearly didn't know what the hell he was talking about. According to a report issued by Deadline.com, Stephen S. DeKnight will replace Guillermo del Toro as director to Pacific Rim 2. The announcement was issued by Legendary Pictures in the latter week of February 2016. Universal Pictures will release the film worldwide and in 3D. In an interesting development, Pacific Rim 2 would mark the first feature debut for DeKnight. There is hope for Pacific Rim 2 to be released. Although we have a director and a writer and a slew of producers and executive producers, no word yet on cast and or film production. At least this is good news for the Pacific Rim fan base. We are certain at this point that the film is definitely on the table. For more information, stay tuned to DecayMag.com for further updates. In my opinion, Pacific Rim was a truly remarkable film, but it didn't get the recognition it deserved. Imagine that, giant robots fighting kaiju. This is a very good movie, and I'm looking forward to part 2. What do you think about this?
You know what? With so many problems Pacific 2 is facing, kudos to them on keeping it alive.
And now, here is Stacy Cox, contributor writer for DecayMag.com, on her report on...
This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual Purge.
The Purge 3 election year story details have been revealed, and it looks like this time it's Frank Grillo versus the system. The Purge franchise has come quite a way. The first installment was released in July of 2014. Director James DeMonaco introduced us to a rather very suspenseful action thriller. Purging is a unique system where crime is legal for 12 hours. You've heard that right. For 12 hours, you can legally dismember any citizen from society. This is the premise for the Purge franchise. In The Purge, which released in 2013, Ethan Hawke and Lena Headey stars as Mr. and Mrs. James and Mary Sandin. Their family, including a young son and a teenage daughter, is held hostage for harboring the target of a murderous syndicate during the Purge. In The Purge Anarchy, which released in 2014, involves a whole different group of people. Frank Grillo stars as Sergeant, a police sergeant who seeks revenge during the Purge on the man who killed his son. A couple's vehicle breaks down during the purging hours. A mother and daughter flee from their home after assailants destroy it. This group of people unintentionally and coincidentally meet up and attempt to survive the night. The Purge 3 election year is set to release early in July of 2016. Frank Grillo, who starred in the second installment, will return again as Sergeant. The plot. It's been 2 years since Leo Barnes stopped himself from a regrettable act of revenge on Purge night. Now serving as head of security for Senator Charlie Rowan, his mission is to protect her in a run for president and survive the annual ritual that targets the poor and innocent. When a betrayal forces them onto the streets of D.C. on the one night when no help is available, they must stay alive until dawn, or both be sacrificed for their sins against the state. Election year goes deep into the world of politics. It follows Charlene Rowan, a presidential nominee who has built her entire campaign on eliminating the Purge. She is seen as a threat and a plot to have her assassinated during the Purge. However, Sergeant, being Rowan's bodyguard, will not let that happen. The Purge franchise has become quite a success. Bringing violence and politics has become the mainstream in the horror industry, with the first 2 installments grossing an estimated $64 million on opening weekend on a $12 million budget. That's certainly good news. The Purge 3 election year will be written and directed by DeMonico and produced by Jason Blum of Blumhouse Productions, who also produced the previous 2 installments, alongside with Sebastian Lemercier and Michael Bay and Andrew Ford of Platinum Dunes, and Brad Fuller. The cast will include Elizabeth Mitchell as Charlene Charlie Rowan. We know her from Frequency, Gia, and Lost. Mykelti Williamson, whose role has yet to be determined. We know him from Con Air, Heat, and Lucky Number 11. Election year is set to release in July of 2016. And now, back to my colleagues at DecayMag.com.
Thank you, Stacey Cox. You know what's truly baffling?
I haven't had the slightest clue, but I think it involves sharks.
You're absolutely right. It does relate to sharks. What gave you that idea?
Haha, you have the traditional shaking my head look on your face.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's the latest update to Sci-Fi's ultra campy science fiction horror film series.
The biggest storm that you've ever seen is about to hit Manhattan.
You guys, since when are there sharks in Manhattan?
We're not talking about a television series here. In fact, the popular franchise in this report is none other than Sharknado. Yes, a 4th installment is in the works. But that's not what the exciting news is about this week. Ian Zerling, Tyra Reid are back and will reprise their roles as Finn Shepard and April Wexler, respectively. The Hoff, David Hasselhoff, also returns as Finn's father, Colonel Gil Shepard. Here's where things get interesting for the Sci-Fi and the Asylum joint production. Variety reported that comedian Tommy Davidson will be joining the cast to Sharknado 4. Davidson will portray Aston Reynolds, a playboy tech billionaire and CEO of Astro X. Based on the description of Davidson's role, it seems he's to be an integral part to the storyline. The character runs a company that designs revolutionary energy systems that can stabilize the atmosphere and prevent the formation of tornadoes. Joining the cast is Gary Busey. Busey will portray April Wexler's father. Rounding out the cast are actor Cody Lindley and actresses Imani Hakim, Maciela Lucia, and Cheryl Tiggs. Personally, I'm not a fan of the series, nor have I ever seen any of the Sharknado films. For the huge and overwhelming fan base of the franchise, here's the synopsis to the fourth installment of Sharknado. 5 years after the East Coast was ravaged in Sharknado 3, oh hell no, Finn, his family, and the cosmos have been blissfully Sharknado-free in the intervening years. But now sharks and nados are being whipped up in places and ways least expected. It's also to my understanding that the fate of Tyra Reed's character, April Wexler, was placed in the hands of the global Sharknado fanbase. A voting system was set up with the hashtags April lives or hashtag April dies. Whatever the end result was in the voting polls would manifest in the fourth installment. Sharknado 4 will release and most likely break records again on July 2016. The film will air on Sci-Fi.
Oh, you poor thing. Was it painful to deliver that report? Seeing how you are a big fan of Sharknado franchise.
It was excruciating, but personal opinions are put aside. It is our duty to provide up-to-the-minute news on all things horror.
I have an exclusive update to a much anticipated supernatural horror film.
Is it The Conjuring 2?
Nope, but you're close. Lights Out won the award for Best Director at the Who's There Film Challenge. David F. Sandberg delivered a short film that went viral in 2013. The presentation was simple and featured a one-woman performance, well, two actually if you include the sinister apparition. The rundown to the film Lights Out is as follows. A woman turned the light to her home on and off. She sees something within the shadows, but she's unsure in her eyes are playing tricks on her. The woman, perplexed by the situation, decides to settle into bed. It is at that moment that the lights turned on. This time around, it wasn't the woman who flicked the switch. The film caught the attention of Hollywood executives and was picked up by Warner Brothers. Horror maestro James Wan is on board as producer. David F. Sandberg will direct the film adaptation to Lights Out. The script is written by Eric Haserer. The synopsis to Lights Out read as follows. When Rebecca left home, she thought she left her childhood fears behind. Growing up, she was never really sure what was and what wasn't real. When lights went out, And now her little brother Martin is experiencing the same unexplained and terrifying events. They have one tested her sanity and turned her safety. A frightening entity with the mysterious attachment to their mother, Sophie, has reemerged, but this time, as Rebecca gets close to unlocking the truth, there is no denying that all their lives are in danger. Once the lights go out, the cast to Lights Out include actress Teresa Palmer will portray the role of the protagonist Rebecca. Actor Gabriel Bateman will portray Martin. Actor Billy Burke will portray Martin's father, Paul. Actor Alexander DiPerzia will portray Rebecca's boyfriend, Brett. And actress Maria Bello stars as Sophie. According to IMDb.com, Lights Out will have the dreaded PG-13 rating, which most likely means that the horror film will appeal to general audiences. Will the full feature deliver the scares at its original source? That remains to be seen. A release date for this film was an issue. Yet, on IMDb.com, Lights Out has a theatrical release date of July 22nd, 2016.
Lights Out. I remember watching that short film. That is a very well produced short film. No special effects, minimal acting involved, but yet it had such an impact. And when it went viral, it was absolutely amazing. That last reveal, that last second when we see that creature, it's absolutely fantastic. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm sorry to say, but I have never seen Lights Out.
You've got to be kidding me. You haven't seen Lights Out?
Nope, never seen the movie. I'm just looking forward to it.
Video games.
What was that?
What are these things? Don't move!
Capcom is trying its best to keep the Resident Evil game franchise alive. Sales and popularity to Resident Evil have declined over the past few years. Many in the gaming community have voiced their disgust with the direction Resident Evil has taken. Resident Evil, also known as Biohazard, was first released in 1996. The game offered a unique blend of horror, action, and puzzle solving. The game stands as a testament, a pioneering medium of the survival horror genre. Yet, over the past few years, Capcom shifted Resident Evil from its survival horror roots to full action shooter. The change left a bitter taste to the Resident Evil fan base. As a result, declining sales and popularity became the norm. The Resident Evil franchise is slowly deteriorating. Capcom resorted to rebooting previous releases titles to keep the franchise afloat. The rumor currently circulating is that Capcom will announce Resident Evil 7 at this year's Electronic Entertainment Expo, also known as E3. The event will begin in June 14, 2016 in Los Angeles, California. Many are speculating that Resident Evil 7 will get a proper treatment and will return to his survival horror roots. To solidify these rumors, Michael Pattison, former Capcom marketing head, issued a statement on complaints stemming from Resident Evil 6 and the creative direction for Resident Evil 7. Pattison stated the following: "We saw from the review scores, we have got to take that on board. We can't ignore that, and we had to take that on to the next game. we can make the next Resident Evil. In regards to the Resident Evil 7 announcement, game producer Masashika Kawata issued the following statement in an interview with Japanese magazine Dengeki. Kawata stated the following: "We're currently not at stake to talk about it, but please stay tuned. Since there's been more spin-off titles, I can see how can be perceived in such a way, and of course, I believe that we should produce titles to bring up the horror. I'm thinking about it and also preparing for." Capcom released Resident Evil 0 High Definition earlier this year. Capcom had made an announcement on remaking Resident Evil 2. However, further details on the Resident Evil 2 remake has not been made public as of yet. Capcom stated that Resident Evil 2 will be built from the ground up. Whatever that means remains to be seen. Capcom has failed miserably with the release of Umbrella Corp. The game strips away any aspect of a survival horror experience. Umbrella Corp is a first-person shooter, a ripoff from the Call of Duty franchise. Instead of facing hordes of zombies or engaging in puzzle-solving dilemmas, the player will compete with other human players in a free-fall, gun 'em up, shoot 'em up, down battlefield. As a longtime fan of Resident Evil, Umbrella Corp is a huge mistake, and it's a poorly constructed addition to the franchise. Let's hope Resident Evil 7 takes the series back to its survival horror roots. Let's also hope that Capcom complies with the gaming community and keep the franchise as it's meant to be experienced.
NightCry is the latest survival horror game to be successfully funded by the general public. The game was first announced at the 2004 Tokyo Game Show and immediately captured the interest of the gaming community. At the time, the announcement was part of the Indie Stream Festival. NightCry is an indie release from game development studio Project Scissors. Upon completion of its crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter, NightCry amassed a total of $314,771. NightCry is marketed as the successor to the 3D point-and-click survival horror game Clock Tower. Many of our younger listeners out there will recall the video game Clock Tower. NightCry features a team of horror/sci-fi developers, producers, and creative artists. They are Hinfumi Kono and Takashi Shimizu, director of the supernatural thriller Ju-On. Ito's work is predominant in the Silent Hills video game franchise. For those of you unfamiliar with Ito's work, it's highly recommended. Definitely check it out. Kiyoshi Arai, from the Final Fantasy fame, was also part of the NightCry collaborative team. Nobuko Toda, notable for his work on the Metal Gear Solid game franchise, will be composing the score in collaboration with Michiru Yamane. The gameplay to NightCry reads as follows. The story takes place on a luxury cruise. The player cannot escape from the horror that awaits them. The game is due to the release sometime in the spring of 2016. The game will be available on Steam and Playism. A trailer to NightCry was released in the early part of March 2016. Visit DecayMag.com for the trailer to NightCry and other assets associated with this podcast episode.
Crowdfunding Spotlight.
And now for our crowdfunding spotlight at Coverage Inc. Films' animated horror movie, Malevolent. The campaign is nearing its end, but there's still time to contribute to this innovative film. What makes this project intriguing is the all-star cast involved. Malevolent features an assembly of notable names in the sci-fi/horror genres. But don't take my word for it. Malevolent stars Bill Moseley, Ray Wise, Morena Baccarin, Danny Lennon, and William Shatner. What is Malevolent? According to the Indiegogo campaign, Malevolent is about a young woman named Mary DeKalb who works for a non-for-profit which promotes peace initiatives. When her billionaire sociopathic father Cyrus learns he's dying, Cyrus calls Mary and her 3 siblings together to discuss his will. However, what he actually has planned for is to produce judgment on them all. They are, in his view, traitors, and he has grisly death traps planned for each of them. The story in itself is fascinating. If you're an enthusiast of horror-themed animations, Malevolent is a project to put your money on. We can all agree that the Japanese market is rich with sci-fi, fantasy, and horror-themed animation films. The US is oblivious to the concept. What we're presented in the movies and on DVDs, Blu-rays, are children-friendly feature films. While nothing is wrong with that, Malevolent is a concept that is long sought after for horror enthusiasts. The story is fascinating. The all-star cast is an attraction, and the incentives offered for backers is a piece of horror cinema history. Indie-produced films do not have the financial backing of major studio production. The end results projects and mediums of unrestricted creative process. By donating to this endeavor by Creative Inc. Films, we're investing on a genre-defining project. For those curious to know where your donation funds will be channeled through, here's a basic rundown. Malevolent is nearing completion, but Coverage Inc. Films need resources to cover additional artists/animators, sound mixing, color correction, music scoring, as well as film festival submissions. As stated earlier, the crowdfunding campaign is nearing its final days. Show your support by visiting their Indiegogo campaign page or by spreading the news. The crowdfunding goal for Malevolent is $45,000. If they surpass that goal, the production team will initiate stretch goals. They're ambitious in hitting the $65,000 mark, the $85,000 mark, and the $125,000 mark. Each goal unlocks its own perks and also helps in other areas of the production cost. For example, the $65,000 mark will assist in hiring additional artists.
Since the attack a few days ago, so much has happened. Okay, for one, we were attacked by aliens. Unorthodox lovin'.
Dear God, it's like a big Joey squirty orgasm. Oh, I mean squirty because of the jelly filling. Oh God, that didn't help, did it?
The press kit for Lost Hope has been released. Lost Hope is an indie animated production that will cross genres. Lost Hope aims to be a comedic sci-fi epic with mature themes and dramatic overtones. The synopsis. Following the exploits of Clara Hope and her team after the unexpected destruction of Earth, the inexperienced crew of the USS Hopeful will be forced to protect what remains of our species from the ever-looming threats that exist in the vast depths of the unexpected universe. The creators of Lost Hope are Jeff and Natalie Harvey. The duo has plenty of storytelling experience. Their previous works include Worlds Beyond the Grave, The Story of Faith, Four Villains, and Hinched 20. Here are the full details for Lost Hope. When an alien species we came to know as the Greys crash-landed on our little blue-green rock, the strange gray-skinned beings from another world were captured and brought to a place known as Area 51. Tortured and separated from one another, they would eventually manage to escape, sending a single Gray home to gather their forces. The remaining Greys would begin a long secret war, preparing for the inevitable invasion. Earth's elite began Project Hopeful in secret. Thousands of programs dedicated to creating a massive, self-sustainable utopia began. It is hoped that they would serve as a bastion for humanity to escape their inevitable doom. But the Greys' attack would come sooner than expected. Lost Hope will follow the crew on board the USS Hopeful. Their often bleak attitude and outlook on the situation is offset by a generous amount of wit, sarcasm, and the hilarious circumstances they encounter along the way. Led by the clever and strong-willed Clara Hope, our team must set aside their differences in order to work together to survive. Outmanned, outgunned, and severely low on resources, the team must struggle to stay afloat in an unrelenting universe. The cast includes a group of amazing talents. Michael Hurst plays Captain Hal Reiner, commander of the USS Hopeful. You may know Hurst in his work from Ash vs. Evil Dead, Spartacus, God of the Arena, and Spartacus, War of the Damned. Anna Hewlett plays Clara Hope. You may know Hewlett from the Arksville Homicides and Frontier, The Rising Shadow. Vince Casso plays Dawson Connor. Casso is known for his roles in The Guild, Jeff Lewis's 5-Minute Comedy Hour, and Humble Pie. Mike Allen plays Marcelo Carlos, an ex-Marine turned pseudo-drug kingpin. Allen is a graphic and comic book artist. Marisha Ray plays Claudia Fitzsimmons, also known as Simmons. She is second in command of the security team and Clara's right hand. Ray is known for her role in the Superpower Beatdown series by Bat in the Sun and her role as Batgirl in Batgirl, the web series. Louis Roscoe plays Cole Fletcher. Roscoe is known for his animated series, The Arksville Homicides, a 3D horror web series. He is also known for his work in Frontier, The Rising Shadow, and Frontier, Prelude to Darkness. Teal Scherer plays Regina Fitzsimmons, Claudia's wife, and Captain Reiner's right hand. Scherer is known for her role in her web series, My Gimpy Life. She's also known for her roles in Felicia's Day and The Guild. The official trailer for Lost Hope is amazing. The animation technique, as well as the acting, equipped with comedic undertones, reminds me of South Park. If you've watched the cartoon series, you will know what I'm talking about. That means back-to-back jokes and punchlines, as well as some bizarre, dramatic content. It's more on the crude side of comedy, but it's all in good nature. Honestly, I found myself giggling quite a bit while watching the trailer. Lost Hope looks to be a good time, and all in good time. I happen to love cartoons and feel that the horror industry could use more adult-oriented horror sci-fi cartoons. Don't get me wrong, Looney Tunes is fine as well, but Lost Hope will be more along my nature. The Lost Hope crowdfunding campaign has started. The production team have already made nearly $5,000 of their $22,171 goal and still have 46 days left. Any money pledged will go towards production costs, including animatics, environment lighting and rendering, up-syncing, character animation, secondary animation, special effects, music and audio, composing, rendering, and release. Every backer gets special perks depending on how much you choose to pledge. To pledge and support Lost Hope, simply head over to the crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter. The project is called Lost Hope Animated Sci-Fi Comedy. You can also tune in to losthope.tv. And now, back to my colleagues at DecayMag.com.
Thank you very much for joining us. Once again, my name is Ken Artuz, founder and editor of DecayMag.com.
Thank you for joining DecayMag.com podcast. Please join us next week for another episode of horror, sci-fi, and thriller news. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Have a good one, everyone.